how long does it take to form new eating habits? So people ask me this all the time. How long do I have to work at these habits before I can kind of trust them to roll along? So we do know a lot about that. So let me share what we know. There's an interesting article I saw. The person who posted it was named Ana del Castillo. And what she's posting about how long it takes to form a new habit is interesting, intriguing. I don't find research supporting it, but let's see if you find it helpful. Anyway, I always try to be really clear what I actually know from research versus what are kind of theoretical and what is sort of partly known, but not very, very well proven. It's just helpful to me to try to make sure that we distinguish between those things. But look at what she says. She says, most of us, when we want to change something in our lives, we want it immediately. When we look at the advertising, it's like weight loss is like fast, right? It's just fast. And when you see people who go on some kind of dramatic diet, sometimes you'll see them lose weight very, very quickly and think, great, that's what I want, because I don't want to suffer. Right? We don't want to suffer with this change, and we shouldn't have to suffer. We're usually using a bad approach if we're suffering, if we're hungry, if we're anxious, et cetera. So you've probably seen me talk about that. When we take this kind of eating less diet approach, it does tend to increase cortisol, make us more anxious, and it does tend to make us more hungry, and it doesn't tend to work. So those approaches are terrible. Don't use those. But we see people lose weight that way. I think about a friend in Chorus who lost a lot of weight with like a prepackaged food plan. And it was very dramatic. And all of us were looking at her like we want whatever she's got. But within a few months, she gained it all back. Okay, that's not what we want, right? So we kind of want that, but it doesn't work that way. So this woman was saying, it looks like it takes 21 days to start a new habit. Sometimes people will say within 21 days, you're starting to really have this new habit. So there is a little bit of research behind that. You don't have it so solid that it can't be broken, but you've gotten something started and rolling, right? She says it takes 12 weeks, about 12 weeks, 3 months for that habit to start to get into a groove. Doesn't take as much thought or effort. It's starting to roll along a little bit. That's what we want, right? We want eating habits that really work, that are going to roll along and become easy. She says it takes 6 months for that new groove to lock down in your system. I don't know exactly what she means, but having worked with hundreds of people changing these kinds of habits, I do see something that happens around 6 months where there's like, I'm pretty comfortable with what I'm doing, eating this way. Then she says it takes a year of continuously doing that habit for you to crave it. So if you've started a running habit, after about a year, you would really miss it if you didn't do it. You really crave it. Or if you pick up a writing habit, I write every day or I paint every day. After a year, you would really miss it if you stopped. So within a year, it's pretty locked down in your system. You're craving this habit. But it takes over 2 years for the new habit to become a permanent part of your identity. And there is good research saying that once our habit becomes part of our identity, it doesn't take so much effort, right? So part of what we're saying is, I want my habits to get more effortless, to roll along more easily. And that is a really good goal. And we know quite a bit about how that works. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I observe with changing our eating habits and getting them to become really easy, really low friction kinds of habits, right? Because we can extend ourselves. We can work hard at new habits for a period of time, but we kind of sense this is going to have to get easier than this for me to be able to continue the rest of my life, right? It does take intention. It takes energy. It takes effort at first. Like some people, when you first start changing your eating habits, and I really encourage you to find the very rare eating habits that are going to add up to great results and not actually slow your metabolism, get you hungry and cause anxiety. That absolutely makes a huge difference. But today I'm just really talking about once you got that, how do you make it very habitual? So I'm going to tell you the 4 stages I've seen to getting sustainable weight loss that is just, that's where you live now. I call it slender for good, right? So the first thing is you have to change your eating to lose weight without feeling hungry. That's what I'm saying is most of the weight loss approaches people are finding make them hungry. It changes their functioning of their hunger hormones. It changes how their cortisol goes. So they get more anxiety. If you're eating in a way to starve yourself, to reduce your calories as a way of losing weight, it doesn't tend to work out well in the long run, right? We start getting hungry, we start getting anxious, and our body starts storing more fat. It's not a natural, healthy way to lose weight, and it's not a way to lose weight sustainably. Pretty much 99% of the time, it doesn't sustain. So we have to find an eating approach that allows us to lose weight without feeling hungry, without getting that, oh, geez, now I'm really hungry experience, because then we think it's all about willpower, that it's not going to work. So you have to learn exactly how your eating has to change to get your desired results so that you're super clear. This is how I eat. One of the things I love the most that I see with my clients in Slender for Good is they start saying, I just feel so much less stress and obsession about eating. I just feel so much more calm. And we believe that's for both biological reasons and psychological reasons. One thing is when you're super clear how to eat, you're not thinking about eating all the time. You eat and then you go do other stuff. So it just frees up tremendous time and energy that you used to spend worrying about what you were going to eat. So you get super clear how to eat and eliminate vagueness, eliminate wishful thinking in your eating, get very clear. Yeah, I know what I'm going to have for dinner. I know what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow. I look forward to it, but the rest of the time, I don't think about eating all the time. It's awesome. All right, so then you commit to this way of eating. It's super clear, and this is how I'm going to eat for an extended period of time. I'm not going to take a bunch of breaks because that will make the habits never get into a groove. I'm going to follow one clear approach for a period of time, and then I'll evaluate. For me, it was a year. I'm not going to do it like 5 days of the week and then change my habits on the weekend. That's going to make the habits always feel difficult. I know this about habits, right? So I wanted to follow this eating approach for a year. And if it changed my life enough to be worth eating differently the rest of my life, then I would be ready to do it because it would be my habit. So I also talk about this elsewhere, but what happens in our body when we eat like in this way that I teach, with an abundance of highly nutritious foods and really putting the processed foods away, like those don't really go in my body. Those are really off the table for a while. It has this effect that scientists refer to as flipping off the fat switch. So we're not trying to force the weight off our body. We're trying to flip a switch in our body so it doesn't feel like it has to store excess fat. It doesn't feel like it has to make us hungry, and it doesn't feel like it has to drive more cortisol into our system. It doesn't feel like it needs to drive up our blood sugar or our blood pressure. So I've talked about this elsewhere. I'm not going to go into all that science, but you commit to eating in a way that flips off the fat switch. And it's gorgeous. It starts to feel so calm, so energizing, and the weight starts to come off so naturally in that kind of circumstance. And then the other part of stage one is you figure out how to fit this way of eating into your life, right? So how do I need to grocery shop now? How do I need to prepare my food? What do I need to have available in the refrigerator, in the freezer, etc.? I know one of the things I did is I went and bought some storage containers that were really going to work for me, and that made a big difference. So just little strategies that you find to make this way of eating fit your life. So that's stage one. Stage one is changing your eating so you're losing weight without feeling hungry. All right, stage two is achieve your slender, healthy weight. I think of it as more of a reset than a release of weight, right? We're more like resetting to a natural, healthy, slender weight, it just is a completely different experience. And then once you get to your slender, healthy weight, it's different timing for everyone, right? I had 60 pounds to lose, so it took me something like a year. It took quite a while, especially I didn't have anyone guiding me. I was following the principles I discovered in the research, but 60 pounds took a while to lose. I have other clients who only want to lose 5 or 10 pounds, and it doesn't take very long to lose that much weight. But once you get to your goal weight, there's this important phase of transitioning. And so we don't want to throw our eating principles out, our healthy eating principles out. This is what we're kind of used to doing in our society. We want to keep adhering to the same healthy eating principles that got us the weight loss, but generally we start eating more. It's a really important phase. I always think about Lily saying that phase was so scary to me. Like, it was so important to have coaching and support during that phase, because that's when I used to always gain weight. I could lose the weight and then I would start gaining it again. And I was so scared. But we really do find there's certain ways to start adding food that help us. Like, I got very clear when I got to the point where I added enough food that my weight started to climb up again, then I was done. No more food. I know exactly how much to eat now, right? So that transition phase is really important. We want to stay super clear about how we're eating. We don't want to get back into this vague, we'll see how I feel approach to eating that's so popular in our society that is not serving us. If we lived in a healthier food environment, it would probably be okay to be pretty vague about our eating approach. It doesn't necessarily feel natural to have to be super clear. But getting super clear really helps in a food environment that is not serving us. And it just reduces the amount of time and energy and stress associated with eating. So in this phase where you achieve your slender, healthy weight, you transition to maintaining your weight, eating to maintain your weight. We're also building skills for consistency. So I talked about how when we're changing our habits, it really feels like a certain climb. It feels like a little bit of an effort. But once our habits are rolling along, there's less friction in the whole system and it starts to get pretty effortless. But that means I go on vacation, I still eat this way. It's the holidays, I still eat this way. Like, you can just reintroduce friction and difficulty into your habits by going back to the vagueness and the wishful thinking, and I'll eat however I feel today, which is super encouraged in our society. So we're building skills for consistency. We're overcoming obstacles. I think about Elaine was in the hospital with her daughter, and those are moments where you go down to the cafeteria. It's kind of a stressful time. We're trying to make sure my daughter's going to be okay. We could be here for a month. What Elaine realized is one direction in the cafeteria was toward all the sweet things and all the highly processed, convenient, quick things that are kind of comfort foods. And the other direction in the cafeteria was where all the healthy, highly nutritious foods were. And there was this decision point for her. And if she had decided the first day to go the junkie route, probably that would have drawn her back in again. So the first day she decided, this is all going to be better for my daughter and for me and the rest of the family if I keep eating healthy during this time and don't use it as an excuse to eat unhealthy again. So we get these various little obstacles in our lives that we have to overcome, but it feels so good to overcome them. It gives us so much confidence about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we treat ourselves with love and care. The other piece to this phase is we really learn to crave the good foods. Like, we find our taste buds change. I think our gut microbiome changes, our brain changes. We start to develop more and more appreciation for the highly nutritious foods, which is a complete game changer. Crave the Good is going to be the title of my second book after I can get my first one, the Slender for Good book, done. All right. So that was stage 2, achieve your slender, healthy weight and transition to eating to maintain your weight. And stage 3 is effortlessly sustaining the way that you eat. Like, I don't care how everyone eats around me. I eat in this healthy way all the time. It's not a big deal. It's not a diet. It's stress-free. I'm just maintaining it. So we have been building the confidence and the skills for overcoming challenges. So we know now, at this point, we know, yeah, I may not have faced this challenge, but I have faced challenges like this in the past. I know how to overcome them and stick with my healthy eating approach. So this is where we get to living slender for good. So we never have to diet again, which is awesome. We should not be spending our lives dieting over and over and over. It is a waste of time and energy. It's not serving us, right? We should figure out what healthy eating is and live there and just do that. And that's the way to stay sustainably, healthfully slender for good. Now, I mentioned 3 stages. There's actually a stage before this, which I call the ready stage. And when we study people changing habits, this is a stage a lot of people skip, and we find it's really important. When people have done a certain kind of habit change enough to realize I need to do a certain amount of preparation to be ready, right? It makes this really big difference. So I'm very cognizant of this ready stage. And actually, I created this Rethink Weight Loss program. I just did it live last week. I can link you to the videos if you haven't seen those. I'll put the link to the first video here at the end of this video. But we really want to get through this readiness stage and be ready to do something very different. It just all works so much better. So the readiness stage might involve, how am I going to carve out a little extra time for this? How am I going to start this when I can put some extra time and energy into habit change? Because it takes a little bit of effort, right? It just all works so much better when you approach your next healthy eating and weight loss journey ready and you start off on the right foot. Does that make sense? Can you kind of hear that there are natural stages here that if you follow them in sequence, you're going to be more successful? Part of the readiness stage that's so important is almost all of us think we already know how to eat healthy. I work mostly with really smart, wise women, successful women in their 50s and 60s. We feel like we know what healthy eating is. And so our mind is full of answers. And what I discovered when I studied this stuff, when I went directly to the research, is my mind is full of answers. And sometimes when I'm looking at the research is telling me I'm wrong. And I don't want to think I'm wrong. So I want to hold on to my beliefs. In some ways, it's only because of my scientific training that I was able to even see what's different here and train myself to go back and say, okay, I believe the opposite of this. For example, I believed I needed to eat every few hours because I was hypoglycemic. And I discovered the research is saying most of us, that's not really going to be the best approach. I discovered I was making my insulin go up and down, my sugar go up and down artificially by eating too often. So that's something I needed to try changing. And I was pretty scared about it. And I thought I was very, very right. I had proven to myself that I was right, that I have to eat every few hours. I'm pretty sure that was one of the big drivers of my weight gain. And I think that this idea is basically serving the food industry, the processed food industry, because 100 years ago, people knew we shouldn't be snacking between meals. Then there's all these people out there saying, we've got healthy alternative snacks for you, right? It is really serving the snack food industry, the processed food industry, when we feel like we need to be eating more often. Most of us, it's not going to be the best approach. So without going into all the details and all the fundamental principles that I discovered, I do want to say this readiness phase of getting some of what you believe, like putting it aside and saying, I'm going to take a little bit of a beginner's mindset here and assume that some of the things I know about healthy eating must be wrong because I'm not getting these great results. For me, 60 pounds overweight, but believing I've got it figured out. Pre-diabetic, but believing I've got it figured out. And a lot of the people who come to me don't have that much excess weight. Some people do, some people don't. And the more you've been able to keep your weight reasonable, the more you're going to believe I've got this figured out. I thought that for the longest time. I really didn't gain weight until my 40s, until menopause. I didn't have healthy eating figured out. I had a lot of mistakes in my head. So the readiness phase is a lot about getting an opening in your head to even learn, okay, what's actually truly healthy eating that will naturally give me that slender weight, will reset my weight to slender so naturally. And then once I find this eating approach, how will I make that just a happy habit? Just get into a groove with it and then make it my identity. So the phrase we often use in Slender for Good is, I'm not on a diet. This is just how I eat. And I love it. So people sometimes look at us and think, oh, you're so disciplined. No, it's not taking discipline. It's my habit. And I enjoy it. I enjoy the way I eat, enjoy the energy and the ability to live a better life that eating this way gives me. And I enjoy eating this way. There's nothing really difficult about it. It's just different. I hope that helps. Reach out to me if you have questions about what the heck are you talking about. And if you haven't seen the Rethink Weight Loss videos, because I've spent years putting that content together and making it as as brief and compelling as I could to help people get through the readiness phase and be ready to learn what truly healthy eating is out there that leads to like this sustainable weight loss that I call being slender for good. You can live slender for good and never diet again. It frees up so much of your life. All right. I hope that's helpful. Let me know what your thoughts are and if you have had this experience. Take care.